Gods and Humans, a novel by Nicu Stanciu, read by Nicu Stanciu. Chapter 4. Another one. Papa, you know that article I wrote on Collector's website at the beginning of the week? Yes, I remember. Someone just sent an email saying that she wishes to speak to us. Who is it? Is it someone we know? No, and she wants to remain anonymous. All right, put her on the phone then. No, not on the phone, she said in person. And then she will come here? No, she won't. She wants us to go there. Pretty mysterious. And where does she want us to go, this secretive collector of yours? In Lugano. Did she say when? Tomorrow. There was a huge gathering of clouds above the stony giants, and soon small raindrops appeared on the windscreen. Shortly it turned into dribbling and then into pouring rivers, a serious waterfall that the wipers could barely drive away from the glass. The landscape, otherwise a magic realm, was now a dark chaos in which the mightiest forces of nature, completely unleashed, wreaked havoc on everything that stood in their way. The road and the mountains were melting together in a dramatic watery scene, whilst huge upside down trees of light pierced the sky, discharging their many branched crowns straight into the earth, booming like hell. It seemed that no stone was to be left unturned, and no corner of the land to be left unharmed. Even the lights of the cars they met on the road seemed to be almost washed away by this madness coming down from the wuthering heights. You'd think it would wipe us all off the face of the earth, said the professor, leaning forward and trying to look up through the windscreen to see if the peaks of the mountains were still there. It's like the gods fighting the titans up there now, she replied, her hand steady on the wheel. Wow, he cried all of a sudden. What? I think I just had a glimpse of the mighty Zeus there in the midst of the battle, giving us one of his thundering blessings. Well, he seems extremely generous today with his blessings, she replied, amused. When they entered the valley that led to the lake, the storm had already passed. From all over the green, huge grey mists rose scattered like sleepy ghosts of a magic breath, and that unspeakable something floating in the air after the summer mountain rain was felt through every pore of their skin. Soon the last huge V opened before them like an old enchanted portal, and through it the foggy emerald blue diamond of the lake glittered shyly in the distance. Above, among the clouds that had become considerably whiter, a small patch of blue was coming into sight. They stopped on one of the versants sloping down into the lake, near some huge trees bordering one of the many estates. I think it's here, she said, stepping out of the car with the phone in her hand. She called. Hello, we are here, but I'm not sure. I can see on the window, replied the woman. The white villa with those huge pines? Exactly. Get in the car and drive in. The gate will open as you enter. Thank you. She drove in and stopped near the house. It was a gorgeous aristocratic architecture of the early 19th century, specific to that area, with both German and Italian influences, and there had been brilliantly integrated some Art Nouveau elements, especially around the main entrance, so that the building was a successful transition from one era to another, retaining what was best of both. I would say more, but I think, unless you've seen one, that any attempt of putting into words what those villas look like would be a total waste of time. Such beauty can't be described in neither speech nor writing. The house is gorgeous, said Diana, measuring it from ground to top. I like it too. All these different elements, so carefully selected and so masterfully combined, replied the professor. He barely finished her word that the door suddenly opened. Welcome! La Signora is waiting for you, a servant greeted them. They entered a great hall, and from there in another one. Welcome, said the lady of the house in very kind and hospitable tone. She had been standing at the window and now she approached them. She was a nice woman in her early 60s, pale blonde, obviously dyed hair, and a warm smile. Diana Monteverdi. She offered her hand to the lady. Elena, it's nice to meet you. Professor Filippo Monteverdi. Nice to meet you too, Professor. I'm sorry, but my full name is not to be mentioned. I've chosen to remain anonymous for reasons that I wouldn't wish to discuss, she explained. We totally understand, they both nodded. It's your right to do so, although we are grateful that you offered to collaborate with us. The pleasure is all mine. I'm honored to have two of the best art connoisseurs in Europe here in my house. Thank you. Both father and daughter nodded again. You have a great house, by the way. Thank you, said the lady. And the head we came to see? The professor remembered. The head is right behind you, there, in that corner. The lady indicated the direction. They both turned round and approached. Wow, it's, started Diana. Magnificent, the professor finished the sentence. Then they went silent and circled the sculpture 3 times in a row. One time she stepped on his foot. Another time they bumped into each other, making the lady smile with all her face. Strong emotions seemed to have taken suddenly great hold of them, and that wasn't unusual. Anyone could see that, given the circumstances. It's incredible, uttered the professor, completely astonished. Yes, indeed, took the word Diana. I've no words for it. I mean, look at his mouth. What a perfect shape of the lips. It's so incredibly sensual. And his eyes. His eyes are like two black holes that would devour everything. Indeed, agreed the professor. Even the curls of his hair are so perfect, he pointed out. I wouldn't believe until now that after so many years of experience, after I thought I saw everything, it will come a day when I'll be still wondering how on earth could someone imbue such energy in a piece of metal and hollow inside on top of it. It looks so alive. Yes, I could almost swear I can hear him breathing. The lady said nothing. She only smiled satisfied. But that smile, said the professor, raising his index finger, that smile is not okay. The lady suddenly frowned, puzzled and intrigued. Is my smile bothering you? I could go to the other room if you like until you finish. Oh no, not your smile. Your smile is perfectly fine and healthy, replied the professor, smiling in turn. It's the smile of the statue that intrigues me. Oh, the smile of the statue, the lady marveled. Yes, that's the problem, the professor nodded. And why is that a problem? Shouldn't they have feelings? Exactly. The professor pointed a finger towards the lady. They shouldn't. All the genuine sculpted portraits from antiquity have no such thing as emotional expressions on their faces. There are more like serious, idealized, unaffected by time or emotions. Hmm, never thought of it like that before, said the lady. The only reason I called you was because, as you specified in the announcement, the provenance of the artifact is kind of uncertain. and I wanted to know for sure before I put it at auction. But the auctioneer doesn't verify the provenance prior to belonging to one's collection, so you could have simply sold it and get a wonderful sum on it. Isn't that what you wanted? Said the professor. But that's exactly what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to put a possible forgery on the market. I'm a woman of moral fiber, you see, explained the lady. I can see that. I can see that now, and I congratulate you for it. And thank you for appealing to us, nodded the professor. Anyway, how do you make sure an artwork like this is genuine? She insisted. Well, first, we make sure we know which the genuines are because they were either in large collections like Louvre and Prado, which belonged to kings and spent a long time in museums, or were discovered during archaeological excavations hundreds of years ago, performed by professional or passionate archaeologists, or even by treasure hunters, or accidentally by peasants from southern Europe on the shores of the Mediterranean, to be more specific. So those are considered to be the originals, and it's after them that the typical antique styles and currents were studied and established. So when we depart in establishing the authenticity of an antique artwork and to which style they belong, we simply compare them with the genuines. Oh, I see, said the lady. And you're saying that there's a problem with his smile? Yes, indeed, this Apollo isn't quite an Apollo. But so they said when it was bought. This Apollo, retook the professor, is a bit too smiley. So you're suggesting it could be a forgery? I'm not suggesting, I'm pretty sure. Only by looking at it? Yes, only by looking at it, the professor concluded. Still, there are also scientific tests then that can remove all doubt regarding its authenticity, interfered Diana, whose long silence permitted her to scrutinize it and analyze it even more thoroughly. Are they? Gaped the lady. Yes, they are. We will either have to take it with us now, or you could send it yourself to our lab. I'll talk to my lawyer and he'll make the legal papers for the borrowing. Then I'll have it sent to you. Still, I have a doubt about it. What doubt? You doubt I'll send it? I'm a woman of my word, you know. No, it's not that. We're sure you are, nodded Diana. Thing is, I'm not so sure it's an Apollo. Not so sure? But it looks like him. What are you saying? Interfered the professor, intrigued. I'm saying the portrait may belong to another god. Another god? Who? There's something odd about his face. Hephaestus, perhaps. Hephaestus? The professor suddenly frowned. You mean the cripple god? Wondered the lady. Yes, quite him, Diana nodded again. And why do you believe that? I don't know, it's something about his eyes, something I've never seen on any Apollo. Now, why would you believe such a thing? Went on the professor with a doubtful expression. Because only the god of fire would have such deep, mysterious, burning look in his eyes, argumented Diana. And also because his face is a bit more muscular than Apollo's. Well, I don't know, maybe. Her father shook his head. If it's the cripple god that can't be seen in his face, if it's the cripple god that can't be seen in his face, said the lady. I agree, nodded the professor. That's because his crippleness was in his lower parts, not in his upper ones, he went on, raising one eyebrow. That's quite what I was thinking, replied the lady with an insinuant smile in a corner of her mouth. And yet, I maintain my opinion in spite of the lack of solid evidence, insisted Diana. That is quite curious, but we shall inquire and find out eventually, he said. I've no doubt, Diana gestured shortly. Thank you again for inviting us here, the professor bowed. Don't you fancy a coffee or maybe dinner? Asked the lady polite. No, thank you, smiled Diana. There's no time for that now. Maybe some other time.